Hello and welcome to an episode of The Bees Show. If you guys are new to the channel, my name is Chris Weehan. I'm a former professional soccer player. And in today's episode, I'm going to be sitting down with my former college soccer coach. I know him as Coach Fish. Some of you know him as Jeremy Fishbein. Today we're going to be talking about what he's been working on the last couple years, how he views college athletics, how he's managed to deal with the loss of the soccer program that he spent 17 years building, and we'll find out if he's getting back into coaching. Before we get into the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's do it.
So this is the first one.
Yeah.
Chris Weehan podcast.
Welcome to, I'm going to call it The Bees Show. Big guest. The first guest. First of many, hopefully, but yeah. I'm honored to sit down with you, Coach. Thanks for taking the time.
No, thanks.
Appreciate you opening up your house.
Oh, you've been here before.
I've been here before, but appreciate you welcoming me in and allowing us to do this.
Always.
My initial thought when I wanted to sit down with you, we've kept a very good relationship, but a lot of people will ask me like, oh, Fish, what's Fish up to? So what has Coach Fish been up to?
What's the reference point? Like this week, today, since...
Let's go the last couple years, obviously. Let's go to maybe start with India.
So yeah, I got back from India 18 months ago. Maybe it's 19 now. It was May of 2003. And that was...
2023?
Yeah, 23. What did I say?
2003.
Man, yeah, 2023. And it was a fascinating... I was with this organization 2 years, but I was in and out of India for about 18 months. Yeah, I mean, it's everything. Like, you name it, an adjective or an adverb, and that's what I experienced there. So it was incredible, but it was tough. So, I had kind of made that decision the December prior. I kind of told him, hey, I'm not going to continue on after this contract. And so I got back, and the adjustment was, on one hand, it was like elation. You're back home. You're with your family full time. You get to go see your kid play college soccer. So it was kind of like fool's gold for a little bit, right? Like, you didn't want to do anything. It was heavy. It was a heavy job. Yeah. So I got back, and then I started, and it's kind of a catch-all. You start I'm going to start a consulting business. So it's always a good, a way to fill a gap in a career, especially, if you've had some experience. So, I met with a few people, and I said, well, I'm going to start doing some consulting. And I'm still doing that, and I enjoy it. I haven't embraced it and just been super competitive and hustled and marketing and websites and social media. I haven't gone off it to that degree.
Yeah.
So, it's been okay. I mean, I've had some cool things. I've gone to Jamaica 3 times for work in the last, how many? Probably 14 months. I spent 10 weeks in Durango, Colorado. I had a little gig up there with Fort Lewis College. I've done some stuff with Eastern New Mexico Highlands, done a little bit with some sports tech companies. So it's been fun, but it's somewhat sporadic, and it's just not what I'm used to, man. I'm used to just getting after it every day.
Yeah.
So I think I've kind of come to understanding myself that I probably need a little bit more structure. I miss being part of a team.
Yeah.
And I think teams just I'm not going to say it's misused, but when I think of teams, I always think of a sports team. I mean, that's all I've done my whole life, from when I was a little kid wearing a uniform, and then pretty much my whole life when you're coaching, you're still wearing a uniform. And I didn't know any different. Yeah. So your life's based on your season, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, it's always like the fall was, that's when you make your money.
Yeah.
And it was intense. And then, you kind of have an off season, and you never have a break, but it's kind of a a cycle. So that's been really interesting, not being in that as much, but I think I miss that.
Yeah.
So
do you find it difficult to, because you did a good job of like structuring our life when we were playing for UNM, and now when you're consulting, you're structuring your own life. You're kind of like leading yourself. Is that a little bit of a challenge?
Yeah. Yeah, really hard. You know, I mean, you just feel like, man, I got to get up early. There's something, I got to do something.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be disciplined. So
Yeah.
sometimes you're just like totally immersed in the work, and it's, you know, 16 hours a day. And then sometimes you have more free time, but I'm just not wired that way, man. I don't enjoy it. I don't. So, you know, I'm kind of in some interesting conversations, and there's just more to it, right? You know, coaching's a pretty selfish profession. Like my wife, luckily I still have a wife. I guess that's the bottom line, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
it was 24/7.
Especially after the India gig, huh?
Yeah. But I'm just saying coaching overall, and you knew how I was as a coach. I mean, it was all pretty 24/7, and
Yeah.
I made myself available to the players all the time, and were welcome at our house. And luckily, you know, my wife was a college and professional athlete, and she gets it. And,
Yeah.
and my kids liked sports, so they could be a part of it.
Yeah, that was cool to see. That was always cool to see the girls around. But I think you did do a lot of. I always found it interesting that, you know, you didn't take days off in terms of like we were always, and I don't mean that in terms of like we didn't have a day off, but like you were always going, and you were always talking about the fact that like you were missing things at home because, you know, we needed to be training or, you know, prepping for games, which was the reality of being in the fall season.
Yeah, man, it's a tough job,
Yeah.
but it's the best job ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and then you realize what gives you the greatest joy is the relationships, and then seeing guys go on and do well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that you really don't think about winning much.
Yeah.
You never really do. I mean, if you look in this house, there's not a single soccer thing in this house.
Yeah.
There's boxes of it in the back, but you know, it's just like it's the relationships. It's, you know, when you come over, or, you know, just, and I could just give you a list of guys that, you know, you talk to, and for whatever reason, or you see them, and it was like pretty cool. Like my younger one, Gabby, just got into this graduate school at the University of Minnesota. It's a really good program. And I called a kid that I coached like in the early 90s at Fort Lewis.
Wow.
And I gave him a call. I mean, we stay somewhat in touch. He's just like, yeah, sure, man. She can stay with me. You know, you guys got a place to stay. And it doesn't hurt that somehow the kid struck it rich too, man. He's got like a lake house and a boat. And
Yeah.
it's just, but you know, it just feels good that kind of anywhere you go in the country, you got a former player, people that you enjoy. So it's, that's the beauty of the job. But also that's what I miss.
Yeah.
I miss the daily interaction.
Yeah.
I think I miss competition, you know. You kind of get to take winning for granted. I sure don't miss losing some of those games, man. Took those hard.
You didn't lose too many games.
No.
I have it written down here. 207 wins just at UNM. 79 losses and 40 ties, I think.
We lost that many at UNM?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's what I had written down.
Well, I didn't think I lost that many games.
302 wins.
Yeah, a lot of
overall
wins.
as
Yeah,
head coach.
definitely won a lot more than I lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, you miss just the everyday messing around,
Yeah.
and then being there and helping solve problems and helping create like pathways for guys.
Yeah.
I think when I've sat down and said, well, what's, you know, and I don't like to have all these acronyms and mission statements and vision statements, but what do I really enjoy? It's creating pathways for kind of elite athletes, or just people that are super focused and driven. You know, there's nothing better. And it's, of course, when guys came here and, you know, we got pretty good and everybody wanted to be a pro player.
Yeah.
And a lot of them got the chance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot. But for those that didn't, it was also, hey, well, you can be great at other things. And same with the pro guys. Like, hey, what else are you going to do? You know, it's kind of always kind of keeping on them. You're always kind of their coach, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say this to the end, but you're kind of leading into it. I just wrote gratitude, and I wrote one that I'm grateful that you took a chance on me, but more importantly, I think the biggest thing when I look back at my time is not just the fact that I don't remember much about what you taught me as a soccer player, but I remember a lot about what you taught me as to be like a young man and to be an adult and to take responsibility and to, like represent yourself well, represent the team well, shake someone's hand firmly, and those things I think will make a bigger impact on all of us that played for you at UNM moving forward, and that's I think the reason why you see a lot of success stories.
Yeah.
At UNM.
One thing that's interesting people always bring up is that they saw me as a parent, bringing those kids, just dragging those two little knuckleheads around. And it was the best thing for the girls, but it's probably also great for all you guys to see, is a different parenting style. I'm just surprised. They got nailed a few times by balls, but they never really get pegged too bad. But yeah, they had a good time. So, that's important to have that kind of modeling, that you can balance things and that family's important. And I was lucky, like I said, my wife was an athlete. She was real comfortable around sports.
Yeah.
So we were pretty lucky. But it's been I'm still a coach, man. I'm not done.
I know.
So I don't really reflect too much.
Yeah.
I know what I like to do.
Yeah.
I had some really cool opportunities in Jamaica and in India working with kids that you could really make an impact on.
How much can you share about what you did in Jamaica?
I did different things. So the first time I got brought over, I had a friend who was the assistant coach for the senior national team. And they brought me over for like 4 weeks, and man, it was crazy. I just got access. I became pretty good friends with the head coach. He's now the head coach of Ireland. Man, they just, come to every meal, go to every training, go on the bus. And it was guys that are playing in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Guys from West Ham, Brentford, Fulham. I don't know how much they're making, a lot, but they're just players. They're just players.
How much can you speak to their culture, their team culture? Because I played with a number of Jamaicans over my professional career and here at UNM.
You played with Mario Williams. He was in the squad.
Yeah. But those guys, the ones that I've played with, and especially I remember in Reno I was playing with 3 of them, they bond really well together. They just automatically bonded together. Was it the same way?
Well, here's what was interesting. You played with Jamaicans. The Jamaican senior national team is primarily English players.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Almost exclusively.
Like born and raised in England?
Yeah.
And now, okay.
Yeah, there's only, the only 2 Jamaicans that really factored in were Leon Bailey and Andre Blake, the goalkeeper. The rest were all English guys. Yeah. So that was an interesting dynamic, but good guys who were proud of their heritage. And it was interesting, just the level and just seeing coming in for internationals. I was there leading up to they played Canada at home, and you just don't have much time.
Yeah.
And also, these clubs, the Premiership guys, just load management, just the feedback you have to give to the clubs. These are big investments.
Yeah.
These guys, and it's weird to talk about players that are like a value, but what's Leon Bailey worth? 30, 40 million? I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot.
And if they're sending him to Jamaica and they're just kind of messing around with him, it's not.
It's like West Ham sent a physio with their guy.
They exclusively work with him.
Yeah, for the camp.
Wow.
Wow. So, that was interesting. That was kind of cool, being involved in the national team setup and just, cool. I enjoyed the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it. And I felt there's still a lot for those guys to learn. There's still a lot of little tactical and positioning mistakes that they make.
The guys that are playing in Premier League at the highest level.
Yeah, in the championship. And it was nice because we played Canada and there's a huge delay. and I got to spend a bunch of time with those guys and their staff and good folks, man. The Canadian staff was great. So were the players. I was really impressed with Canada.
Yeah, the Canadians are nice people.
It's a good deal. So yeah, that whole experience, and then I helped with really what I was brought to help with some of their youth setup and look at their national training center, and it was a great trip, and I met a bunch of people. And then the second time, I was hired by a professional club in Montego Bay by their owner to come in and just kind of really look at their whole setup, help them develop a plan for their youth academy, and just kind of have a vertical integration, you know, from youth to first team. And that was kind of a shocker, just in the sense of, at that time, how they went about first team, you know, just in terms of whether it be video, recovery, equipment, nutrition. I mean, not even close to what we had as a Division I college team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I would say for the senior national team, you realize how good some of these Division I teams have it. And I think you probably saw that in the pros, that you had it pretty good, you know, in college.
Yeah, when I described my experience going from UNM to USL, granted I was going to a new franchise, so they're just kind of figuring it out. It was like taking a step down.
Yeah.
The quality of play was better.
Sure.
And the games were much tougher, but the setup and everything was much lesser.
So yeah, Jamaica was great. So the second time I went over with this pro club in Montego Bay, and kind of, yeah, it was wild. I got the red carpet treatment there, and you know, it's a world-class resort city. It was pretty wild. I had a good time. So that was the second time, and then I think I was there for 2 weeks, and then I just went for 10 days this past December, and there's a guy I kind of became pretty good friends with, who they have a thing there called schoolboy football. So it's high school, but there's also an additional year. There's a 13th grade, and it's kind of like English education.
It's a big deal over there, though, don't they?
Huge.
Like, if you make the final, it's like sell out.
So there's a thing called the Manning Cup, which is the Kingston area teams, and then there's the Costa Cup. And yeah, it was in the National Stadium. I mean, it's nuts. Yeah, that was great. So I went there and helped, kind of with the schoolboy football, it's only 4 months a year. So it's really, how do you create a year-long training plan to develop elite players? And so, you know, I went and kind of helped them have a plan with, you know, the rules are a little different. So you can kind of play with a pro club on their youth side and play high school. So there's not as many limitations on who, you know, a high school coach can coach you in club.
Okay.
So you could essentially play for a professional team and play for your high school team if you could put all the pieces together.
Okay, so they're not too picky about you not playing for your high school if you're on a certain...
The interesting thing is, you got the high school football, soccer is the biggest thing in town. Like, that's the kid's dream, is to play in that national stadium in front of 30,000 people.
Yeah.
That's where the press is. It's like nothing else. So it's how to kind of mesh all these things together. So I kind of went there, worked with one of the schools, worked with a local pro club that had just been demoted from the Premier League to the Championship, their second league, and then met a little bit with some of the people from their federation, and just trying to put some pieces into place, which hopefully, you know, I stay involved with. I really enjoyed it there.
Yeah, you see yourself going back over there to do something?
Yeah. But I mean, the best thing about Jamaica was the players. Man, are they hungry.
Yeah.
The first time I went to a high school game, it was a big game, and I couldn't believe the tackles, man.
Yeah.
Just flying in. And I was like, if some American high school team went out there, they would probably just come off the field. Like, they couldn't, these dudes were laying into people, just laying some licks.
Yeah.
Like, you remember just some of the guys you played with.
Yeah.
Like, it was those cats every tackle.
Yeah.
And they could fly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Brenton Griffiths comes to mind when you're talking about that. He would put in some tackles.
Yeah, so it was fun. I did a little coaching when I was there. So that almost to me would like be the dream, would be to get to really work with those kind of players.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
So when you're with the club in Montego Bay, are you as like a bit of like an auditor? Like, hey, come in, observe our club from the ground up, give us your feedback, give us your opinion on.
Yeah.
You're sort of auditing them from just a soccer standpoint or from a business standpoint as well?
No, I didn't really look at the budget as much, but I helped put together like a budget for if they really wanted to do the academy thing right. And I'd done that in India, so I kind of knew what kind of equipment, what you had to do with the fields. I had some experience doing it. So I kind of wrote up a report. And they got a new coach who's done well, an Argentinian guy who's pretty good. So that was nice, once again.
Yeah.
And I guess I felt pretty comfortable. They just kind of give you the run of things. And then so O'Neill, who you played with, he had a good buddy who was the captain of that team, this guy Owain and Gordon, who he actually played in USL and MLS a little bit. So, I knew some of the players, and I was pretty comfortable there. So I like Jamaica.
Yeah.
Really comfortable.
So we can see you maybe spending, half your time in Jamaica, half your
Oh,
time
I don't know if it's half. I don't know if the wife would go for that. But man, I tell you the coolest thing, I went to Jamaica. I met this guy when I was in Kingston, this Jamaican guy, and we actually had a mutual friend. There was a guy, Jerome Robinson, who was a Canadian guy who coached basketball at UNM. He was one of the assistants. This guy went to high school with him in Toronto. So and I'm pretty into reggae, and there's this famous place called the Kingston Dub Club, and it's up in the hills. Like you got to drive there. And man, I went there a couple nights, and that was about the coolest scene I've ever been in.
Just like proper reggae, live music.
Proper and everything else that comes with reggae, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And not many white dudes with a shaved head there. So it was pretty sweet.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was probably the highlight of Jamaica outside of the football. I went there twice. It was great.
Yeah, we saw you post some pictures. I mean, you look like you were enjoying you look happy, you look like you were enjoying yourself. And
Jamaica was good.
Yeah.
I really like Jamaica, and I've made some really good friends there. So hopefully something continues with that.
That's awesome.
With India was just so different, but the players were just starving for coaching and stories and exposure.
Yeah.
And the coaches too. It was, soccer, right?
Yeah.
You just feel like it's an international language, And I know we've both been fortunate. I've traveled all over the world, and it opens doors. It's pretty fun. Yeah, it's a great game.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. We were just talking about this before, but without getting into the weeds too much, you introduced the program. I think it was 2015, right? You introduced meditation to the program. Do you remember that? In the spring? And I remember
mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah, mindfulness,
breathing.
meditation.
I think we did some breathing.
Yeah, we did a lot of breathing, and we did visualization as well. I think it was difficult at the time to really embrace it. I think just for the age we were at, but honestly, it lived with me still to this day, and even it lived with me through my professional career, and then it definitely played a big role in everything I went through this last year. The difficulty of getting hurt and losing my job, essentially, and I want to know what's your relationship with mindfulness, with meditation now?
Probably not as much as I should. Probably should be mindful of what I'm eating. I've been eating too much lately. But, I think my goal was to always find ways and give you guys the opportunity to be your best. And I'm certain that if practiced properly, that helps you not only in soccer, but in life. I mean, there's no question. It's kind of, and it's not like this foo-foo kind of crazy thing, you know, it just depends how you look at it. But there's just no question it can help you with, help you perform, it can help you recover, it can help you relax, you know, refocus. I think everybody kind of has to find their own practice with it. And it takes a lot of discipline, you know. And I've intermittently been very disciplined with it, but not regularly.
Okay.
And you know, you played with Levi a little bit.
Yep.
So Levi Rossi, you know, that's really become part of his life, and yoga and breathing, and now it's important. It's super important, and it was neat for all of us that, you know, we kind of entered that time together, because it wasn't something I was super familiar with, and probably we should have been a little bit more diligent. And I know it was hard for you guys, but you know, I think it played its role, and it introduced you to a skill that could help you in life. I think a lot of the things that hopefully you were exposed to, you know, some were good, some weren't, but for you. But, you know, I think that's part of what college should be, right? You should be exposed to new things, and some you embrace, some you don't. And I think professional sports is the same way.
Well, I just did a video talking about perspective, and I think that's like the biggest thing over the last 12 months for me. When you meditate, you're just trying to lose the inner chatter, the thoughts, because oftentimes, especially when we're going through difficulty, it's negative inner chatter, or it's anger or frustration, and we've even spoken about how those emotions do you no good. And I've, through meditation, found that, or it's through meditation and the practice of gratitude almost combined, that can really change your perspective. And when you change your perspective, all sorts of things open up in your life. You
can train your brain. There's no question about it. And there's certain things that are fact. You know, you talk about that chatter. I mean, it is fact. Social media, too much time in social media, too much screen time, you know, especially closer to when you go to bed, you know, diet, you know, sugar, simple carbs. I mean, there's stuff that is fact.
Yeah.
And it's how, you know, you don't always have to go to extremes, but you have to find kind of a sweet spot with that, you know, whether it be alcohol, diet. You know, now I'm kind of amazed about the prevalence of, you know, marijuana in these states where it's now legal, you know, which used to be such a taboo, and now it's not. And it's not really for me to say whether there's a positive use of it, but there's clearly a negative use of it amongst young people and athletes and anybody. So I think you know, I'm used to dealing with pretty high level athletes and pretty competitive people. Yeah, I mean, all these things you need to explore, you know, and how you deal with success and how you deal with hard times. But yeah, I mean, that's great that you still practice it. I think we've talked about it. I'm very certain, like cold plunge and sauna, I'm 100% certain that's ideal if you can get into a regular program. Now, when I was working in Durango, I joined this sports club purposefully because they had cold plunge. And that was probably the longest time where I really did it regularly. And man, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I keep telling myself, and I am going to get one. I just haven't really figured out our setup here. But there's no question, to me, that would be one of the best things you could ever do, because it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot of times it is not fun jumping in that thing.
Yeah.
So there's a dealing with discomfort, and then I think there's a lot of physical gains. Anytime you can challenge your body and your brain and get uncomfortable, I think you grow from it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I've noticed with doing the cold plunge is your you're putting yourself to a tipping point of like, do I do this or do I don't? Like, I know it's beneficial for me and I know it's hard and I really don't want to do it, but getting in, training your brain to do something that's difficult, do something that's hard over and over and over, it kind of just makes you mentally strong.
And I think it's good for your body because your body's doing the same thing. You're compensating for an extreme.
Yeah.
So there's growth with that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like lifting weights.
Yeah.
You're taking something to where it's not comfortable, and then your body adapts.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing with heat. So yeah, there's no question, sauna and cold plunge, if you could pull it off and make that part of your routine, I'm certain that's a good one. I mean, there's a lot of things we know that are going to enhance your life and longevity, but a lot of them aren't easy, are they?
No. What did, obviously, like, I had my experience this year and you were a massive resource for me, and we all know that you went through something extremely difficult with building UNM over 17 years, is that correct?
Yeah.
Where you built that program into what it was, and then
we built it. I mean, I was the constant.
Yeah.
I was there the whole time, but a lot of guys were a huge part of it, right?
Yeah, of course. There's so many, and this is what this episode's for them, talking that I know a lot of people want to hear from you. And what did you, hone into that helps you sort of deal with that mentally? And I know it's something.
Still haunts me today. I mean, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I haven't handled it. And I don't know what to say. I mean, that's just me being honest.
Yeah.
I have dreams about it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing I've ever dealt with in my life. So, and it's a real compliment, but it's also, you never escape it here.
Yeah.
Like literally every week, or like crazy little things.
Yeah.
And they refer to you as, hey, you're the UNM soccer coach. I go, well, I was. And it's just, oh, that shouldn't have happened. Or, man, it's like all the time. It's mind-boggling, Chris.
Yeah.
It's been over 5 years, and it is all the time. But it's a thing, it's so complimentary to you guys and everybody, the impact you made on so many people, man. It's unreal. Oh, my kid used to love coming to your camps, or you guys helped our kid go to another college, or it's incredible.
And it's supposed to be like a compliment, but and it is.
Oh, it's painful, man.
But you then leave that interaction and you're like, it just, makes it that much harder on your heart, huh?
I was in a meeting yesterday and I had to walk out because this lady kept going on and on. It was nice of her, and she was talking to my friend about the whole thing, and I just had to leave. I mean, it's just some point, what am I going to do? So, I don't know what the answer is. It's kind of, man, it's nice to live somewhere else. I mean, I don't know.
Do you think you will? You think?
I don't know.
We've talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, we love it here. I mean, this will be home at some level or at some time. I wouldn't be adverse to leaving for a while, but I think this is where we'll more than likely retire at some point.
Yeah.
I love New Mexico.
Yeah. It's the anger and the frustration, it doesn't do us any good. I think that was my biggest experience. Man, and you even said that to me, and that was like a light bulb that went off.
Anger and ego are like the worst emotions.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, nothing was done maliciously, so it's always going to probably be a battle of some sorts, right?
Yeah.
But I wish I could give you a different answer.
No, I appreciate your openness to it. It is tough. No, I can only understand to this degree of.
Yeah, but what it's tough is there's no annual event for you guys to be part of something or to bring guys together. Like, how sweet would it be to have an alumni event?
Yeah.
Like we used to have when all the guys would come back.
Yeah.
It's just a blast.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing, it's just disappeared. So that's tough, It's not that I miss it's not even the job so much as that, yeah, you miss the guys and having them be part of something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of stinks or sucks, whatever words you want to use for all you guys, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I do think about that sometimes. I'm like, man, if the program was still here, like that would have been great for me to be involved in that with some sort of, I could have volunteered while I was playing or something. It's hard not to think like that.
Yeah, but who knows?
Yeah.
I often think that would be one of my happiest days ever if they brought that program back. So who knows?
Never say never.
No.
No.
But moving on.
Yeah. So, all right. All right, let's talk. I want to get your opinion on like the state of college athletics as a whole, and then we'll go more importantly into college soccer. I redshirted underneath you, and I don't know if it was just the culture of the program or like the fact that I could see my development under even that experience of redshirting, but I can't imagine like kids redshirting these days because you're seeing kids halfway through seasons that are jumping in transfer portals. Do you think the transfer portal is a good thing, or do you think it's a bad thing? An overall good or an overall bad?
I mean, it's just a little bit over the top. I think it'd be real challenging as a coach. I mean, you lose a lot of control, but your job isn't to control your players. Your job is to control the environment and create a great environment. And I think it differs from school to school, right? I mean, I think kids were always somewhat leaving at the smaller programs, you know, because they wanted to go to a big program. So it's not completely new, but now I think it's just become part of the culture, and then money's involved. And it's really kind of fool's gold for a lot of these sports. I mean, I get it with football. I mean, how do you go and say, well, we're paying coaches $8 and $10 million, and schools are making a lot of money? Now, this is only a handful of schools.
Yeah.
But at some point, yeah, these kids should have some kind of compensation. I mean, I think they've just created a monster. How do you pay, in theory, a collegiate coach $10 million? Yeah. Well, I guess you pay him that because he's making you 15. So it's kind of gotten away. So that's something that I try not to focus on too much, but that you still have to be a teacher and an educator. And if you're going to give these kids money, hey, let's make sure they're smart with it. Let's make sure there's some kind of retirement plan. Let's, teach them investment. How do you do it? I think you'll see it going more that way. I think there'll be more university control at some point, and that people will be, just like when you get a financial advisor, is it a fiduciary? Are they looking out for your best interest?
Yeah.
I think it needs to kind of go in that direction. With soccer, I think you're seeing more and more of the American players, the top American players, either are not going to college or they're going for a year or two, and it's becoming really internationally based. And I think these international kids have generational experience of, hey, pro soccer for the most people, it might be good for a couple years, but it's hard to make retirement kind of money.
Yeah.
And that a college degree, I still believe, gives you a lot of advantages, and a lot of things you can learn in university enhance your life.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. How do you think you would have managed, let's say, I always believed in focus on soccer, and then obviously at university focus on school, and you have your social aspect, but nowadays you see these kids, focusing on other things and deals and trying to go after some money. How do you think you would have managed that?
Here's my take on all of that. People will refer to well, you can't be old school. You got to be smarter, and you can still be old school. You can still push kids. You got to recruit the right ones for you, and you got to be upfront with them.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to cater to things too much.
Yeah.
I think you have to mellow out on some things. I mean, there's things that, I don't know. I'm not going to say I regret it. You probably regret some things, but you'd have to mellow out a little bit, but your expectations wouldn't have to change.
Yeah.
And I think, we were real fortunate here. I don't think kids would have left here.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, that certainly wasn't my case. Like, I never even thought of leaving.
No, it's a good, but so I think sometimes it's the mid-majors are the ones that get hit. But they're always kind of getting hit. And now money comes in, there's a little bit, there's rules, but there's not rules. So there's lots of negotiations through a third party. It's a bit more of an open market. It's tough. I don't exactly know how much money in soccer guys are getting paid. I think some big-time goal scorers
are getting paid NIL money?
Yeah, I think they're getting 20 grand.
Wow.
A lot on the women's side.
I have heard about
tons
that.
of players getting 20, 30 grand.
Well, there's the social media aspect to money now as well, and brands and like the kind of, and I know I've sort of had that conversation with some women coaches that I won't mention, but it's tricky. Like, you can't really like.
It's kind of manipulated. And on the women's side, like you said, and it's women's sports overall, you got to be careful. And I'm not, I mean, that's not for us to say, right? In terms of what are people interested in? Yeah. That's a sticky one.
Yeah.
But I think, I think the long-term results of all this is it's going to be a negative for a lot of people like to say non-revenue sports, and that's school to school. But the big money makers are football and men's basketball. There's some schools that women's basketball is successful, volleyball, maybe baseball in the South, a handful of schools. Yeah. But, it's probably few and far between, outside of football and basketball.
Yeah, it becomes tricky with like, the equal opportunity, equal rights type of deal when, certain players are making an exuberant amount of money and others are like, where's our cut of the...
Yeah, I don't know. I can only imagine that some of these big football schools when you got guys making $1 million.
Yeah,
it'd be pretty interesting, and I don't know.
I remember like even some of the football players at UNM before the NIL stuff, they were coming around with all the the new headphones or the fancy car, the scooters and stuff, and you're like kind of, I can only imagine nowadays you got a guy who's making $1 million and in the college setting, what that appears like.
Driving Lamborghinis. No, I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah.
But that's not the purpose of college athletics, at least not as I see it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily has to be part of professional athletics.
Yeah.
I think you want level-headed people. Yeah. I just think with everything that's going on around us, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of sticking it to people.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And I don't think that's part of being a pro, because I don't think you're doing kids a favor.
No. Speaking of kids, obviously I've worked with a fair share of youth athletes, and what advice would you give a youth player that's seeking to go to college, or especially Division I college, like in terms of getting recruited? I guess especially out of New Mexico, kind of more importantly, a smaller state or a smaller community.
Mexico's really tough. Because there's not a single collegiate men's soccer program.
I know, with Eastern just getting cut.
So in terms of exposure and standards, it's hard to gauge.
Yeah.
So New Mexico's tough. It's tough. But I mean, the general things that were the keys to your success, I mean, and they become kind of cliches, but it still is hard work.
Yeah.
Now, some guys have to work harder than others, right? I mean, you played with some guys that were just so gifted.
Yeah.
They probably didn't work as hard as you. It's just...
Yeah.
Now, I think once you start getting to the elite of the elite and at the highest levels of the game, they are gifted and they do work hard.
And they're intelligent.
Yeah, it's some of the media and how they're portrayed is misleading.
Yeah.
These guys, to perform at the highest levels of the professional game in any sport, there's not a ton of margin of error.
No.
But in college there still is, less than high school.
Yeah.
But then and maybe lower levels of pros, there's guys, but they burn out, they don't have much of a career. So I think it's the same things. I think it's hard work, but smart work. More is not necessarily better.
Yeah.
It's quality. And then it's taking care of your body, and it's being a student of the game in any sport, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've all, as players, had different experiences from our coaches, the coaching that we had, like how exposed were we to the game at a high level?
Yeah.
You were in a hotbed. You were in Southern California, the best soccer in the country, so you got to see it.
But
that's very different.
Being a student of the game is a good point because, I always admired college soccer. I always desired college soccer. So I was often going to the UCI and watching those games and to sort of get a feel for the level and, what certain players are doing. Just watching the game, even if it's just enjoyment, you're still learning in that way.
Yeah. But there's nuances of the game and understanding and savviness and that you only learn from experience and also having people point it out, So I think that here in Albuquerque gets to be a challenge because if you haven't been exposed to it and you don't know what you're aspiring to achieve and facing that level of competition regularly, it's hard.
Yeah.
Especially for kind of like the workman player.
Yeah.
Male or female, the ones that just, hey man, we're workers. We're not just this freak athlete who can cheat the game a little bit, So I think that's harder.
Yeah.
Because the competition piece is a huge component of development.
I have kids asking me often, what's the best advice to get recruited? Is it just sending a bunch of emails, or is it just playing, in the best games that you can, whatever that be, or play for the best team that you can?
I think it's who you're trying to get recruited by.
Yeah.
Division I, they need to see you play.
Yeah.
Unless you just somehow show the craziest video, which I could list guys that happened. I don't know. Did you play Blake Smith?
Yeah.
So Blake Smith sent this video, and Blake Smith was from a small town outside San Antonio. And I was like, who is it? Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. And
doing backflips.
Yeah, just you knew this kid was, and we said, then I wanted to see him play, and he came to a camp. And there's a couple guys like that just, their video was just wild.
Yeah.
And you said, wow.
But in his case, he wasn't fooling you. He showed up and you saw that, right? Or
yeah. He was good.
Yeah.
He was good. But once again, though, he was a guy who was a different level athlete.
Yeah, he was a freak athlete.
Yeah, I think he at the MLS Combine, he was one of the highest rated guys.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he's a great athlete.
They ranked him as in the top 3 of overall athlete. He, with all the markers that they hit. Yeah.
Yeah. So. But so I think though for Division III and Division II and NAIA, I think a lot of their recruiting's off video.
Yeah.
So you got to have great video for sure, and then it makes a big difference if you have a coach that people really listen to, and that's hard.
A youth coach?
Yeah, who's placed other players. It's very different. And I'd always talk to some kid's coach. And the first thing, and I don't really want to hear he has to validate his opinion. So I'd say where have players that you coached, where did they go on to play? Right? Now, if he says, I coached this kid who went to UCLA and this guy at Maryland and this guy at Virginia and Duke, and this guy's just as good, I'll listen a little bit. But if it's just, I really haven't coached any college players, I didn't play at the highest levels, but I just know he's good enough, I go, no, you don't know.
That makes sense.
And that's a pretty common thing, right?
Yeah. I guess I didn't realize, I don't think you had a personal relationship with my youth coach, but my youth coach had a personal relationship with a number of schools.
What was his name?
Brian Wallace.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was in the mix, and then,
there is value in that.
And Moss then went and saw you play a bunch, and Yeah, but he was like, he had coached top players. He knew the game.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think he was probably pretty honest with his assessment.
But he was placing kids because he had a lot of relationships
Yeah.
with college coaches. Yeah.
So that's another hard one here, that there's not many coaches that kind of have that ability just to open doors based on their recommendation.
Yeah, that's fair. It's difficult playing here because if you're going to go get the best games, you got to leave the state, and that just becomes so costly.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. It's something I've been talking to some people about lately. Like, at what age do you have to really start traveling a lot? You know, and then, what is the cost? And it's still not weekly. I mean, there's some good games. But it's a challenge here. But it happens. Hey, there's some great players that have come out of New Mexico.
Some very good players.
There's great players that come out of a lot of remote places.
Yeah.
But they usually have some kind of inner drive and something special about them. And I think that's something as a player, and I've always said this to certain players, and I know we talked about it when you were a player and you worked at it. Like, for instance, can you be great on dead balls?
Yeah.
If you are great on dead balls, you're pretty valuable because you're going to bang in some goals.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of that's practice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you were one of the better guys we ever had. Michael Reed was a kid who spent just hours and hours and hours on dead balls.
Yeah.
So Jeff Rowland, I mean, some of our biggest players, that was one of their kind of specialties.
Can you add that little bit of differentiator from your teammates? Yeah.
Yeah, and those are things you have control over to a degree, right?
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work.
Definitely.
And then the same as a goalkeeper, really being good with your feet and knowing how to organize, being great with set pieces. I mean, there's little things that you can do, and you can do it in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get big games like you get in South California.
Yeah, that's just the inevitable. But all right, last question. Do you see yourself getting back into coaching?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I love that
doing
answer.
Something.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I miss it.
Yeah. Awesome. We look
at some level. I mean,
yeah.
Is it coaching? Is it but there's some kind of interaction with players and
leading.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I sure hope so.
Teaching other kids how to be leaders, that's what you did for us.
Yeah, that's the plan. I have to.
Love that answer.
Yeah, and I feel this has been good for me. I'll be the best I've ever been when I'm back into it, hopefully in a full-time role.
Yeah.
I'll be good.
Yeah, you will. Coach, I just announced my retirement today, and I just wanted to appreciate you for taking a chance on me. You guys were the only offer I had to play Division I soccer was here. And I don't think I realized how critical that moment was for my career. But I don't know if you remember, I came on a recruiting visit. I think I saw a game Friday night. I went home Saturday. I called you Sunday and I committed because I knew right away that this was the place to be, and appreciate you. Thank you for everything. Thanks for sitting down today.
No, it's fun. It's good. Well, a lot of good things ahead.
Yeah, definitely.